So yesterday, I gave an introduction. I gave a demo on performance testing, and I covered like what are the salient features of my training, and like what I explained the course contents. Right? I explained the course contents for freshers and in performance testing as well as working professionals. So let me, as I have some new participants, so for sake of them, let me explain. So these concepts are enough for those who want to claim 3 years or 4 years experience. These are more than enough, right? And this comes to around 200 hours, as you can see here, right? And these are advanced concepts for someone who is already working in performance testing. So these are different course altogether. Some people may be worried, like oh, do we need to learn all this, right? So that's the reason I am explaining this case. So these are the course contents for freshers or beginners in performance testing. All right. Now, so coming back to this, we'll start with basics. The first, as I explained in the demo session, the first 10 to 15 hours will be demo sessions, right, on performance testing basics, guys. So I'll be uploading all these demo sessions to my YouTube channel as public videos. Anyone can watch them. So let's get started then, right? Is there is everyone ready, guys? I hope there are no audio issues to anyone. I could see that everyone is connected to audio. Pritish, are you able to hear me?
Yes, yes, no
Okay.
issues, all clear.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. Right. So before going into the into the actual concepts, right, I want everyone to be comfortable with some Windows shortcuts, right? So the first one I want to cover is Alt Tab, right? So as I have some guys from non-computers background, I want to cover this guys, right? So Alt Tab is for switching between open windows. If you want to switch between any two open windows, you can use this Alt Tab, isn't it? So I'm using Alt Tab now on my machine, right? So this is how you get, right? You are seeing my, that window, right? The new window, right? Wherein it is showing all the open windows. Yes or no? Suppose I want to, guys are able to hear me?
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes, sir.
So I switch it from that Chrome to Jmeter now, isn't it? Right? So this is switching to switch. Alt Tab is a shortcut to switch between open windows. And then Windows D for desktop. Suppose I want to see, I have multiple tabs open, multiple windows open here. One for JMeter, one for Zoom meeting, one command prompt, and Notepad++ and folders, some folders. Suppose I want to see my desktop, right? I want to see my desktop, or I want to open something on the desktop, which is there on the desktop, right? So Windows D is the shortcut. Windows plus D button on the is the shortcut for to go to desktop, right? Clear, guys? Now, if I want to go back to Chrome again, use Alt Tab. You can use Alt Tab again. Clear, guys? Can you please try it along with me? These are simple shortcuts, but very useful shortcuts, guys. Please try along with me, right? And if I want to see the file explorer, right, you can use this Windows C. I'm using Windows C, Windows button on my keyboard plus letter E, right? Now you can see this file explorer or Windows Explorer. Clear, guys? And the next one. So F11 is for maximizing windows. Suppose I want to maximize this view, right? Use function F11 on your keyboard like this. Now you'll see like this. Clear, guys? Yes, please be interactive, guys. Few of you can unmute yourself, okay? Yes. Now F11 is for maximize windows, and Control C, Control X, most of you maybe should be knowing, right? You already know this. So these three shortcuts, most of you may be already knowing, right? So you should be knowing like Control C, Control X, or Control V, right? So what exactly happens when you use Control C is whatever content, suppose I select this content and I use Control C, right? This content will be copied to my computer's clipboard, right? It will be copied to our computer's clipboard, and when you use Control V, it will be pasted from your computer's clipboard, right? And so And then one more important, Windows feature that I want everyone to know is quick access. So let me show you that. Let me show you that with some example case. Okay. Suppose, I want to go to this folder every time, very frequently. I want to go to, for instance, I want to go to G drive, or, I want to go to some software very frequently, right? So what I can do is I can add this software to, or else, let me go one more level down, right? Suppose I want to go to this ELK stack folder every time, right? So every time, so instead of going to G drive software ELK stack, what I can do is go to home, and you can add to this quick access. On the top left, you see one option, right? Pin to quick access. So you can add this to the quick access. Now you can see that over here, somewhere here, right? So you see this folder over here, metric bit. The next time, if I want to go to that folder, I can simply open a file explorer and select this folder here, which is added to quick access. And you see here, I have added a lot of folders to, I have pinned a lot of folders to quick access. So I can quickly jump to that folder. I can quickly go to that folder. Whatever folder I want to choose, I can quickly go to that. Clear, guys? From this quick access, I can open a file explorer by using Windows C, right? And I can choose whatever folder I want to go to, isn't it? Guys, able to hear me?
Yes, sir.
Are you doing with along with me? So you can add some folders to this quick access. All right. Use this option pin to quick access. So those who already upgraded to Windows 11, there may be some UI changes, by the way. But the core concepts remain the same. There may be some UI changes, that's it. Okay. UI changes means user interface changes. I mean to say user interface changes, right? And as we will be using Zoom meeting only for these trainings, right? So I'm using a licensed one, by the way, licensed Zoom meeting. So I want everyone to make you to be familiar with these shortcuts. The first shortcut is, suppose if you want to temporarily mute or unmute, right? Suppose you want to mute or unmute yourself, right? So you can use this option Alt A. Remember, A for audio. Alt means alt is nothing but alter, right? So how this word alter came is the shortcut Alt came is alter, ALTER, right? Alter means change, right? Alter means nothing but change, right? Guys, why I'm explaining is like, so that you will not forget this, right? You shouldn't forget these shortcuts. Okay. So Alt A, so change the audio. Suppose if you want to mute or unmute yourself, you can use Alt A as the shortcut. And if you want to turn your video on and off, so you can use this Alt V. V for video, Alt for change, right? So Alt V is the shortcut for turning on or off, video on or off, right? And suppose you want to speak for a moment, right? So, and you want to temporarily mute or unmute. If you want to, suppose you are on mute and you want to temporarily unmute yourself, right? So you can press and hold the space bar, and you can speak whatever, you can, that makes you, go to unmute, and then you can, press and hold the space bar till you speak. And then once you release the space bar, again, you will go to mute. Clear, guys? Guys, please try these shortcuts, okay? So, later on when you are doing screen sharing and all, right? If you are doing screen sharing and all, these shortcuts will be useful, guys. And Alt H is for chat, right? If you want to type some message in the chat window, you can use Alt H, right? While on Zoom meeting, right? So you can use Alt H. Oh, sorry, here, I am on slides, right? That's why it is coming up. Hold on 1 second. H. Yeah, you can see the chart window, right? Guys, are you able to see my chart window on the desktop? Guys, please respond, guys. Guys, are you able to hear me or no? Am I audible?
Yes, Kishore.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes, sir.
If you
Yes,
want to,
sir. Yes, sir.
yeah, if you want to share your screen, use Alt S, right? If you want to share your screen, I'm stopping my screen share. One of you try that shortcut, Alt S. Please do it quickly, guys.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Venkatesh, now we are able to see your screen. Yeah, thanks. Now let me share back my screen. Okay, so these are the important or useful, very useful Windows shortcuts and Zoom meeting shortcuts, guys, for attending these online classes. These shortcuts will be most useful. Right, now I'll go to the next slide. So next slide is, like KYC, know your computer. So general meaning of KYC is know your customer or know your client, know your customer, right? So I just gave my definition, know your computer. So these are few computers basics that everyone should know, like whether it is a developer or test engineer, functional test engineer, or automation test engineer, or any software engineer should know these shortcuts, right? So let's quickly go through each of these few commands or few Windows basics that everyone should know. The first one is IP address, right? So what is this IP address, guys? IP stands for Internet Protocol, right? So hold on. So IP stands for Internet Protocol. So every machine which is connected to internet, that will have an IP address, or every machine will have something called IP address, right? Right. And how to check the IP address? So open a command prompt by typing Windows R. Can you everyone please type Windows R on your machine? Type Windows R and you see this run prompt. This is called as run prompt, right? And type CMD over here to open a command prompt, right? Type CMD over here in the run prompt to open a command prompt, or else you can, in the Windows search box, you can type CMD from here also, right? On the bottom left, you see a search box, right? Windows search box, that's called as Windows search box. You can use, like you can type CMD over here also. And if you want to check the IP address, type ipconfig, right? And this is your IP address of your machine. This is the IP address of your machine, right? So this is how we can check that. This is our IP address, guys. By the way, I'm connected to Wi-Fi now. So this is my IP address 192 dot. This should be read as 192.168.1.9. Okay, please read it as dot. Some people read it as point. Please don't read as point. It should be read as dot. 192.168.1.9, or read it as 192.168.1.9. All right. So this is the IP address of my machine currently. Clear, guys? And I'm connected to Wi-Fi. So based on which, if you are connected to LAN cable, right? You have to. This will be your IP address, by the way. If you are connected to LAN cable, you have to check under Ethernet adapter. You have to check here, guys, if you are connected to LAN cable. But I'm right now I'm connected to Wi-Fi. So this would be my IP address 192.168.1.9. Clear, guys? And please remember, this is IPv4 address, IP version 4, right? And now we have something called IPv6. IPv6 was introduced recently. So why do we have IPv4 and IPv6 is? Let me give some example. That is the next thing that you have to know. So why do we have IPv4 version 4 and IPv6, right? So if you remember, initially when mobile numbers are introduced, we used to have all the numbers starting with number 9, isn't it? Guys, please be interactive. Some of you can, those who don't have any background noise, can you please unmute yourself, right? So if you remember, like mobile numbers used to start with number 9. So once all the numbers are exhausted which are started with number 9, so then 8 series was introduced, and then 7 series, and now 6 series, isn't it?
Yes.
So in the same way, as these IP addresses are, like maybe because of we are having too many computers connected to internet. So to accommodate more and more numbers, they have introduced this IPv6 address, IP version 6. Clear, guys?
Yes.
And how to, guys, able to follow me?
Yes, Kishore.
Right? Yeah. So the next thing you have to know is what is your computer name or what is your host name. When I say host, this is nothing but your computer name, right? So you can type a CMD, you can find it from here, go to the command prompt, right? And type host name over here. So this is my computer name, or this is I'm using a laptop. So, but that guy named it as desktop. Okay, that's fine. So this is my machine name. You got it? And how to find the host name is go to open a command prompt and type host name. Clear, guys? Or else you can check it in some other way. Right click on this PC and check properties. Go to properties and you can see the host name there as well. Here you can see here, right? Device name. This is nothing but host name. And this shows you, this gives you a lot of information. What is your machine name? What is the processor? Here you can see this is my processor, Core i7-9750H. Can someone tell me, on seeing this, can someone tell me what is the generation? Which generation processor is this?
I7.
I7.
i7 is the processor
I7.
model. i7 is the processor model. And I'm asking which generation. So in each processor, you have first generation, second generation, third generation, and so on. So how do you know the generation is the first? See, this is processor model. i7 is the processor model. And here this number indicates your processor generation.
9th generation.
So this is 9th generation processor that I have on my machine. And this is the speed of my processor, right? 2.6 gigahertz. Right, guys, everyone should know these, guys, right? So 2.6 gigahertz is the speed, my processor speed, and the total RAM installed on my machine is 16 GB, right? Out of which 15.7 GB is usable. So what happened to that remaining 300 MB, 300 plus MB is, anyone? See, total RAM installed on my machine is 16 GB, whereas usable RAM is 15.7. So what happened to the remaining 300 MB?
Operating system.
Actually, it will be allocated for booting the device. Okay, 300 MB will be occupied by boot memory or something. We call that as boot memory, right? For booting the device, some memory will be consumed, will be allocated, right? Next. So what else we need to know? Few more things that you need to know is what we see. You have different, you have 32-bit operating system as 64-bit operating system. So this system type tells you what operating system is installed on my machine. Okay, so I have 64-bit operating system, x64 based processor, means nothing but 64-bit based processor, right? And this shows you your Windows specifications, like what operating system, what exact operating system I have on my machine and which exact version and when was it installed and so on, isn't it? Right? So you should know all these cases. You should know all this. Every software engineer should know, not just we, right? Every software engineer should know at least like what is the operating, how to check, which processor you have on your machine and what is the installed RAM and what operating system we have on our machine, right? So the other way to check the processor memory and all is Task Manager. You can go to task, right click on the task bar and open this Task Manager and go to Performance tab, right? Go to Performance tab. And you can see, see the CPU and memory details. If you select CPU, you can see here, this is i7 processor as I have shown you, as it is being shown here, and it's a 9th generation processor, right? And there is the CPU utilization is varying between 10 to 25%, isn't it? CPU utilization or my processor utilization is varying between 10 to 25%. And this is memory. This is all about memory or RAM. I have 16 GB of RAM installed memory, and out of which 13.7 GB is already in use, and I have 2 GB free memory only. I have only 2 GB free memory. Clear, guys? because I have opened multiple tabs in Chrome, like it's taking, approximately 14 GB memory is already in use. All right. And we will discuss all this, what is paged pool, what is non-paged pool, and what is committed, what is cached, we will discuss all this, in the coming up sessions as and when required. And you can see here, there are two slots, two RAM slots. Laptops generally have 2 RAM slots. If it is a desktop, they will have 4 RAM slots generally, right? I don't know, I'm not sure, how the current motherboard configuration is. But what I know is, like, on desktops, because I stopped, like we are not using desktop from many days, from many years, of course, right? So, but generally desktops will have 4 RAM slots, whereas laptops will have 2 RAM slots. Now, when I have 16 GB of RAM, can you tell me what is the how the RAM configuration is? It's showing here slots used 2 of 2. What does that mean? Yes, most of you know this.
8 GB, 8 GB.
Right. I have 2 RAMs of each of 8 GB each. So if I put my
Yes.
cursor here, you can see there, right? Slot 1, there is one 8 GB RAM, and in slot 2, there is one more 8 GB RAM, right? And you see the speed of the RAM is 2667 megahertz, right? This is the RAM speed. The higher it is, the faster your machine will be, obviously. Clear, guys?
Yes.
Right? I hope everyone knows what is this RAM and how does it look like. Everyone knows that, guys? Yeah, this is how it looks like, right? So this is a desktop RAM, guys. It will be a bit lengthy than laptop RAM. Laptop RAM will be generally smaller than desktop RAM. Okay, this is how your RAM memory looks like, guys. What does this stand for? RAM stands for, RAM stands for
Access memory.
Random
Random
access
access memory.
Random
random
access
access
memory.
memory. Here you can see, right? RAM stands for random access memory. Fine. So let me go to the PPT. Right. The next basic, other important basics that you need to know is port number. What is it? What is meant by this port number? What is this LAN and WAN? Right. So port number means on any computer there will be thousands of port numbers. Right. So suppose you install MySQL on your machine. Right. So the default port number will be 3306 for MySQL database. The default port number will be 3306. So that, what does that mean? First, let me show you what is the default port number for MySQL. Okay. Just give me a moment, guys. Let me resume recording. Right. So this is the this is the IP address of this machine, guys. Right. This is the IP address of this machine, whatever we are seeing. Right. And she has another computer which has IP address of 192.168.1.11. And you can use this ping command to communicate with that computer to see if both these computers are able to communicate with each other or not. Right. So when she used ping command, she is getting a reply from that computer, from the other machine. Clear, guys? And you'll see this message: packet sent for, received for. If it is not connected to internet, right? So you will see packet sent for but received 0. But both the machines are connected to internet, and they are able to communicate with each other. Clear, guys? This is one of the usage of ping command. There are many other, there are different other view in different other situations, right? But this is one of the use of this ping command. Clear, guys?
Yes.
Yeah, thanks, Jay. I'm stopping the screen share. All right, so I'm sharing back my screen. And FQDN we will discuss later. So FQDN stands for fully qualified domain name. So this will be required, when you are working in a real-time project, you may need, sometimes you need to provide your FQDN name, fully qualified domain name of your computer. So, once we are into this, once we are into the tool, or, in the coming up sessions, I will tell you that once I am connected to, some corporate network, then I can show you this one. Here, guys. Okay, and this firewall. So the next important Windows basic that you should know is firewall, right? So let's understand what is this firewall. Just please give me a moment, guys. Let me plug in my charger. Firewall, right? So let's understand what is meant by firewall. So if you type firewall.cpl in the Windows search box, right? So on the bottom left, you have, this is called as Windows search box, by the way, right? Here you see, right? Type here to search. So if you want to search for something within your computer, you can type it here. So can everyone type this file? So you can, if you want to launch any program like Chrome or Firefox, you can type it here and launch it here. Launch it from here. Yes or no? Right? Suppose I want to launch Firefox browser. I can type Firefox here and I can click enter to launch this Firefox. Isn't it? So this is called as Windows search box, and type here. Can everyone type this on your machine? Firewall.cpl, right? CPL stands for control panel. And once you click enter, it will open firewall on your machine, right? And you see here, right, there is something called Windows Defender Firewall. And let's understand what does this do. This Windows Defender Firewall can help prevent hackers or malicious software from gaining access to your PC through the internet or a network, right? Is this statement understood, guys? What does this firewall does? What is the role of this firewall? Windows Defender Firewall can help prevent hackers or malicious software from gaining access to your PC through the internet or a network. Is it clear? Basically, it will protect your computer from hacking attempts. Hacking attempts are some malicious software means dangerous. Malicious means dangerous. Meaning of malicious is dangerous. So it helps your computer. It protects this firewall protects your computer from hacking attempts or any dangerous softwares running on your machine. There will be some softwares which will be trying to gain access to your PC when you are connected to a internet or a network. So this firewall protects your machine from those hacking attempts or dangerous softwares. Clear, guys?
Yeah, sir.
Okay, and let me go to the next one. So let me show you something. So sometimes you may need to turn off the firewall, and this is how you can turn off, right? So I clicked on this turn Windows Defender Firewall on or off. So suppose you want to, sometimes you may need to turn off the firewall, and this is how you can turn off. You have to select this turn off Windows Defender Firewall. So when do we need to turn off the firewall is when you are installing some software like LoadRunner, you may need to turn off the firewall. Right? It's not recommended, but like when you are connected to your home network, which is safe for one, so you may need to turn off the firewall when you are installing some software like LoadRunner and so on. Clear, guys? So this is all about firewall that you need to know, right? You need not know how the firewall is developed or how is it implemented and all. You don't require all those details, but everyone should know that there is something called Windows Firewall, which will be protecting your computer from hacking attempts or malicious software. Clear, guys? And there is the next important basic that you need to know is host file in Windows. So let me show you what is this, where this host file will be there in Windows OS, right? So let me show you this. So you open your File Explorer. Okay, go to C drive, Windows, System 32. Go to System 32, folder called System 32. Type some, select some folder and type yes, so that it will take you to all the folders which start with letter S, right? and here you can see system32, right? You go to drivers, type D here, and you can go to this drivers folder, etc hosts. So this is the host file that I am referring to. I'm opening that in Notepad++. So please, everyone, so yeah, we need to install some software, for this training. I'll share one PPT to everyone, so you can install all those software mentioned in that PPT. All right. So let me quickly show you that. So these are the list of software required for and the sample applications required for performance testing. I'll share this PPT to your email. Okay. So and everyone should have all these software installed on your machine. Zoom meeting, of course, you may be already installed. You might have already installed as you already joined meeting now. And Notepad++, everyone should have this Notepad++. And those who want to to learn Loadrunner, you need this. I'll show you how to. I'll help you like how to get the trial version and all. So actually, if you want to get directly from internet, you need to have an official email address. So if not, I will share my software dump to your email ID. I have the latest version, all the versions of Loadrunner. I will share this software to you, to your email ID. And you should have Java 64-bit. So these are the list of software and sample applications required for performance testing training is. Okay. So we'll, as and when we require some software, we will install it. And also I'll share this PPT to you. So, there are a couple of other slides, for your quick reference. I'll share it to you. Let me go back to the slide. So this host file is, let me show that host file once, right? So this is how your host file looks like. Okay. And now, if you, there is some background noise from few participants. Let me mute them. Right. So this is how a host file look like. We will use this, we will explore like how to use this host file and when to use this host file. I'll explain this later, but everyone should know, every software engineer should know that there will be something called host file on your Windows operating system, and this is the location. Where exactly is the location, guys? This is the location. C Windows System32 drivers etc hosts. Drivers etc. In that you have this host file. Here, guys. And when exactly we use that host file and all, I will cover it like as and when required. I will explain them. Right. The next thing you should know is command prompt and elevated command prompt. Right. So everyone knows what is this command prompt and how to launch the command prompt. Right. So if you type CMD in your search box, Windows search box, you get this command prompt. So this is observe here. This is a normal command prompt. You see the title as just command prompt. Right. So sometimes if you want to run some command, you need admin privileges. You need some admin privileges. And for that, you have to open command prompt in admin mode. So how to open that is, once you type CMD, you say on option here, right? Open and run as administrator. Isn't it? So use this option, run as administrator. And here you see administrator command prompt. So this is also called as elevated command prompt. This is also called as elevated command prompt, means you will have admin privileges now. You can execute some commands which require admin privileges also. Clear, guys? Some commands cannot be run from normal command prompt. Then we need to use this admin command prompt. And this is how we can launch this admin command prompt. Type CMD and use this run as administrator. Right? We will come across this thing also in our training. Okay. Sometimes, when we install some software, so we need to use this admin command prompt. At that time, I'll ask you, right, I'll ask you to open an elevated command prompt or admin command prompt. Elevated command prompt is nothing but command prompt with admin privileges, right? And the next important Windows basic that you should know is Windows PowerShell. Let me show you how to launch that. Type here PowerShell, Windows PowerShell, right? And this almost looks like command prompt, but in a different color. And this PowerShell is more, advanced version of command prompt, normal command prompt. All right. So we'll also use this, when we are using JMeter, when we, at the end of JMeter training, I will cover like some open source tools like ELK stack. At that time, we will use this PowerShell, Windows PowerShell, right? So, however, you should know that there is something called PowerShell in Windows operating system, which is nothing but an advanced version to your command prompt, normal command prompt. Clear, guys? This is more powerful, and it will have all the admin privileges. Clear, guys? So, if you want to explore more on this, right click on it on that, and use this option, explore PowerShell. You'll get the Google search results, and you can go through that. You can explore more on that. Clear, guys? What is PowerShell, right? So you can go through this documentation. All right. Guys, able to hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right. So how many of you are able to follow? Can you please give me a thumbs up on the Zoom meeting? You have an option to share your reaction, right? So are you able to find that?
Yes.
Session in 10 minutes. Let me quickly cover the remaining concepts in this, KYC concepts, right? So the next important one you should know is operating system and system configuration, right? I have shown you just now, like how to check that, how to check your operating system and all. So I covered it in the beginning, right? So you can go to your desktop and right click on this PC and go to properties, open this properties, and you can see your, your operating system and all your, your processor, installed RAM and all this, isn't it? Right? So this tells you like what is your operating system and what is your system configuration. When you say system configuration, that is nothing but, when you say system configuration, that is nothing but, what is your CPU, what is the CPU installed on your machine, or what is the processor configuration, and how much RAM is installed on your machine, and all this, right? This is what system configuration refers to. Clear, guys? As there are some non-computers guys, I am explaining this for your benefit. Okay. And there are few people like who have long like those who are married and who want to start their career after 5 or 10 years, right? So keeping them in view, also from keeping in view of non-computers guys, background guys, I'm explaining all these concepts. And additional clocks in Windows operating system, I'll explain that later. Okay, but let me show you quickly. So if you see on the bottom right on my machine, on the screen, you see on the bottom right, have a look at bottom right, guys. First it is showing local time. Are you able to see that, guys? Are you able to see that local time and Eastern time and PST?
Yes, sir.
Right. So this is additional clocks. This is what additional clocks I am referring to. Suppose your client is in EST, Eastern time zone. You are working in a US project, for a US project, right? And you want to see like, what is the time, current time, right? For them, right? So you can use this additional clocks, whatever I have configured on my machine. So I have configured, apart from local time, I have configured Eastern time and Pacific time, Pacific Standard Time. So how you can do that is right click over here and go to toolbars. No, hold on. So right click on this and go to taskbar settings, right? Search for date here, date or clock. I don't remember exactly. 1 second. I did it long back. Date, no, date and time settings. Right? Yeah. So see here. Now you are at date and time settings. Use this option, add clocks for different time zones. Right? And this is where I configured that. I configured that, Eastern time and PST over here. Here, guys. Yes, is it clear? This is what I am referring to as additional clocks, right? So if your client is in some, you are working for a US project or UK project. Suppose like you need to know what is the current time, right? So you can use this additional clocks feature in Windows. We'll use that. Don't nothing to worry. Like those who we will use that once we go to test executions. I'll explain how these will be useful and how to use those. For now, and please remember and understand that there will be something called additional clocks in Windows operating system. The next important concept you should know is remote desktop connection. Suppose you want to connect to a remote computer, right? you use this something called RDP, remote desktop connection. So how to see that is, how to launch that is, you type in Windows search box, you can type MSTSC, right? MSTSC stands for Microsoft Terminal Services Client. No need to remember that also. Or, you can type remote and you can launch this remote desktop connection. Now, Jaya, like you told that you have one more laptop at your network, right? In your network, right? So you can, you can connect to that remote machine using this remote desktop connection. Okay, type the IP address of that machine here, right? Jaya, can you please help me and share,
Yes, sir.
share your screen? Yeah, please share your screen once. I just want to show them, everyone how to do that remote desktop connection. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, can you can you connect to that remote machine? Yes. Type not type MSTSC. From run prompt you have to type MSTSC, or else you have this Windows search box, right? You can use that. You need not open that run prompt also. This is not required. This is not actually required. You can type it here. Yes. So type the IP address of the other machine. No, type the IP address of the other machine. So 192.168.1.11, that is the IP address of other machine, right? At your home. Type the IP address over there. Okay, can you do me one favor? Can you give me control, please? I have sent a request to you. Can you please accept my request? Yeah, now I got a control of your machine. Let me type the IP address. I remember that as 192.168.1.11.
Sir, sorry to interrupt you. Can you tell me how should I know my IP address and command prompt, sir? I just missed it. Hello?
Yes. Yeah, Siddharth. So you can open a command prompt CMD and type IP config.
IP
Config, single word. IP config. Type IP config as a single word.
Okay, sir. Understood.
Yeah. So Jaya has some other machine at her home, right? And this is the IP address of the other machine, right? So now I am connecting. So it's up and running, right, madam?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Right.
sir.
So yeah, I'm clicking on connect now. So we need credentials of that machine. Do you have credentials for that machine? So now it is initiating a remote connection to that machine, right? Initiating remote connection to that machine. So if remote desktop connection is enabled, it should be enabled, by the way. Okay. So let me explain this. Why you are seeing this is, if it is up and running, but remote access to the server is not enabled on that machine, means that machine is not accepting remote access to that, not allowing remote connections. That's what it means, right? Or if it is turned off, is it an office machine, madam?
No, sir. It's a home.
It's a
in,
personal machine.
yeah,
Okay.
it's a personal.
Okay. Personal only. Okay. So is it up and running now?
Yes, sir.
And is this IP address correct? 192.168.1.11?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Maybe then, like the remote access is not enabled in that case, right? So, but this is how you connect to a remote machine. Got it? I'll show you in some other session, like when I'm at home. Right now I'm outside, like when I'm at home, I will show you that. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm stopping the screen share. All right. I'm sharing my screen. Now, so, and Windows shortcuts, we discussed already. So, in the previous session, we did, and previous slide, I have explained some Windows shortcuts. Everyone should know those Windows shortcuts. And apart from these, every software engineer should be comfortable with these Excel basics, right? So every software engineer, not, whether it is developer or manual testing engineer or automation testing engineer or performance testing engineer, right? So Excel is very much helpful. And,
Your voice is breaking, sir. Is
is it breaking for everyone? Is my voice breaking for everyone, guys?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay, then it should be a network issue, man. Prasad. Is it Prasad who told this?
No, sir. No, sir.
Okay. It should be a network issue then, if it is fine for others, right? So, for the first 10 to 15 days, I will be covering these performance testing basics only, computer basics, and then, performance testing basics. So, till then, you can go through these guys, right? So, go to help, open Excel on your machine, go to help, right? And, there will be something called show training, right? If you are using a licensed version of, Windows operating system, you'll have this, click on the show training, and you will have some basics on Excel here. You see here, right? Excel video training, quick start, and it will show you some video, right? Some videos on how to create a workbook in Excel and how to save your workbook to OneDrive, right? And go through these videos meanwhile, because for the first 10 days you will not be having any other assignments. So please utilize this time to learn basics of Excel. Basics are enough. You need not be an expert in Excel, but you should know basics of Excel and Word, MS Word. Here, guys, Microsoft Word, right? Please go through those, trainings. And also, let me show you MS Word, how to learn that. A simple way to learn that is, you can, if you are having, if you are having licensed version, like you can open MS Word, Microsoft Word, and open a blank document, and again go to help here and click on show training. So again, you'll have a lot of videos over here. If you don't have a licensed version of Windows, you can search in Google, YouTube, and go through some videos on Excel and Microsoft Word. Clear, guys? That would be an assignment for you for tomorrow. Tomorrow is Sunday, right? Tomorrow we will not be having a session, so please go through this, Windows basics and Microsoft Word basics videos and Excel videos. Clear, guys? Will you do that for me or for yourself? Not for me, I said for yourself.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Please, please learn the basics of Excel and MS Excel, Microsoft Excel and Microsoft Word, right? So that would be your assignment for today and tomorrow. I'll be sending, an email. I'll be adding your, please, I asked you to share your email IDs. Please ping me on WhatsApp one-on-one to me separately. So I'll add everyone to Google Classroom, and I will share the assignments. I will be sharing the assignments over there. Clear, guys?
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
And you have to submit the assignment. You have to work on that, and you have to submit the assignment in whatever way I asked. I will create a new classroom, and I will add your email IDs, all your email IDs to that, right? So let me create quickly. Right? Name it as 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. This would be our regular time mostly. Anyways, I will confirm that, right? And we will be right. I will add all your email IDs to this classroom, and I will be sharing the assignments over there. So here you can see these are the classrooms that I created for my previous batches. You got it right? These are the different classrooms that I created for my previous batches, and I will be giving assignments over here like this. Got it, guys? And you'll get a mail whenever I give some assignment. You'll get a mail, right? I'll be adding all your email IDs like this. You all of you do like this to this classroom, and I'll be sharing assignments over here.
Hello.
Right. So that would be assignment for today and tomorrow. Excel basics training and Microsoft Word basics, right? And let me explain what is the static IP and dynamic IP. I'll close in 5 minutes, guys. Please bear with me for today. So static IP and dynamic IP. Let's understand what is the static and dynamic IP. All right. So if you check the IP address of your machine, right? We check the IP address of our machine, right? By using this command called IP config, right? So this is the IP address of this machine. Now this IP address is not a static IP address. Means it's not a permanent IP address. if I connect, after 1 week or 1 month, this IP address may change. Your machine IP address may change because it is a dynamic IP. Because it's a dynamic IP address. Clear, guys? You can observe that, you can check after 1 week or, or 2 weeks, you can check that. So this IP address, private IP address changes because it is a dynamic IP, right? Suppose you want to have static IP, then you have to pay some additional amount to your ISP, internet service provider, and they will provide you some, so or else, this, even this public IP also, this changes from time to time. Okay. This is not a permanent one. So you have to, if you want a static IP, you need to pay something to your ISP, internet service provider. There will be some additional 100 rupees per month or like that to get the static IP, right? So we'll discuss this. What is static IP? I mean, when do we come across in the testing? We will discuss that as and when we come across that, right? And VPN stands for virtual private network, right? I'll explain this VPN and all in a separate session. So it will take some time, right? And also I'll explain these tools like WinSCP and PuTTY also. Once we start, once we are into the training, right? I'll explain this WinSCP and PuTTY, where to use. And the last one you should know is environment variables, right? So this is also time taking, and I'll explain that later, but I want to show you, how to check the environment variables. Type environment variables here in the Windows search box and open this, that option, and this is, and click on this button, environment variables, right? And these are called as environment variables, right? If you observe here in environment variables, there are two types. One is user variables, the other one is system variables. All right. So let me explain this and I will close the session for today. What is the difference between user variables and the system variables? System variables means on a computer, you can have multiple users. You can create multiple user accounts on a computer, and each user can connect to a computer at a different time, right? I hope everyone is aware of that. You can create multiple user accounts on your computer so that, the other user will not be having access to your folders and all. Clear, guys? If you are sharing your computer, between your family members or between your friends, suppose you are staying in a room and you want to share your computer between your friends, right? And you want to keep your information secure, right? So what you can do is you can create an account for each user, and that user can access his folders only, isn't it? That particular, if you have other users connecting to your computer, they can access their folders only. You can set up in that way, such a way, right? Now, when you have multiple users using your machine, right? So these environment variables will be helpful. So system variables means these variables, let me explain what is this first of all. So I'll explain, I will take some example and explain. There is something called Java path, right? So hold on. Java home. Yeah, okay. So you see some variables here, right? Java home. So this is defined in user variables, right? So what is first, let me explain what is the purpose of this variable. The purpose of this variable is you are telling your computer that you have Java in this path, C program files, Java, JDK. In this folder, you have Java. That's what you are, that's what this means, this variable means. Let me show you that. I'm copying the path and, opening the, let me open a new Windows Explorer, right? And let me paste that path here. So this is where I have Java installed on my machine. This is Java folder case. So you are telling your computer that I have Java installed on my machine, or use this Java version. That is the purpose of this variables, user variables case, by the way. Is it clear, guys? What do you mean by variables, system variables, or user variables? You are telling your computer to use this Java available at this path. Is it clear for everyone, guys?
Yes.
Right? So, and what is the difference between user variables and system variables? Let's understand that. Suppose I have multiple users connecting to my machine, right? I created multiple user accounts, and user variables for Pawan, this is my login name, right? So these variables are applicable to only this account called Pawan, right? This user account. But when you define something in system variables, right, these will be applicable to every user connecting to your machine. Is it clear, guys? What is the difference between user variables and system variables? This is at the machine level we are doing. we are defining some variables at the machine level. So that is called as system variables. But if you are defining some variables at the user level, you have to define it here. Here guys, suppose I want to use Java on this, which is available at this folder. There is one more user. Let's assume that my son is also using the laptop, and like he wants some other Java version. So what he can do is he can create a user variable with this, and he can give the corresponding folder path. Clear guys? Guys, clear or no?
Yes, sir.
Are you sure? We'll ask some questions now. Okay. I'll go through the recorded session one more time. So if you have any doubt, or else like we will use this environment variables in the further sessions. I'll explain that one more time. We will revisit these terms. Okay. For now, remember that there is something called environment variables, which are and understand what is the purpose of those environment variables. All right. So I'll stop it here, guys, for today. Tomorrow I will be starting with software development life cycle, and once this SDLC is completed, I will start with testing life cycle, and I will explain performance testing life cycle in the next session. Tomorrow I will complete SDLC, software development life cycle, and testing life cycle. And in the day after tomorrow session, that means Tuesday session, next session would be on Monday, right? Tomorrow is Sunday, right? So no session on Sunday. Next session would be on Monday. So in Monday's session, I will be covering this SDLC and testing life cycle. And in Tuesday's session, I will be explaining performance testing life cycle. Okay. Dear guys, are we good so far?
Yeah, sir.
All right. So I'm stopping the recording, guys. So let me pause recording. And if you have any queries, we can, I can address those queries and we'll close the session. Those who haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, subscribe to my YouTube channel. So, let me show you quickly how to reach my YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com and search for performance testing real-time training, or search with my name, right? Show you that. So I told you, right, because of power outage at my home, I had to, come to some other place. That's why internet is very slow for me today, right? But I'm on a high-speed broadband connection at home. I have a 100 Mbps connection at home. So today it's very slow because I'm right now I'm using some other internet connection, guys. All right.